Yesterday we began a biblical look at restoration. A man had fallen. His name was Peter, one of the disciples of Christ. He did something he thought he would never do. The Bible warns all of us to take heed lest we fall. Peter denied the Lord 3 times. He also cursed and he swore, trying to prove that he didn't know the Lord. So here in John 21, he had gone back to his old life and he had taken other people with him. And that seems to be something, unfortunately, that's repeated too often. But the Lord had come to minister to him. In John 21, verse number 4, when the morning was now come, Jesus stood on the shore. But the disciples knew not that it was Jesus. The Lord was ready for them. Praise the Lord, he was there. And it's important that we all understand that if we've fallen into sin, the Lord's ready for us to be restored to. He's there. He doesn't give up on us. And if you are trying to reach out to someone who needs to be restored, it's important to understand that we need to be ready for them. Don't ever cross somebody off a list, because God doesn't. And so the Lord was ready for him. He was standing there, and the Lord reached out to them. In verse number 5 and 6, it says, Then Jesus saith unto them, Children, have ye any meat? And they answered him, No. And he said unto them, Cast the net on the right side of the ship, and ye shall find. So he reached out to them. They saw him, but they didn't think much about it. But praise the Lord spoke to them. I'm thankful today that when and if we fall into some sort of sin, the Lord is there for us, and he'll reach out to us, he'll speak to us. And if we as people have been given the ministry of reconciliation, we need to be ready to reach other people, and we will need to reach out to them. They probably, just like Peter and the disciples here, will not reach out to us. We need to reach out to them. They're going to be very focused on what they're doing, and it's really important that we reach out to them. The Lord did so by showing attention to them. He asked how they had done fishing. He just spoke to them and asked if they had anything that they had caught. And, just building that relationship back, talking to people, being interested in their life and showing them that you love them. But at the same time, while he showed them attention, he showed them authority. It says in verse 6, and he said to them, Cast the net on the right side of the ship, and you shall find. He shows not just attention, but he gives them authority. He says, Go out and cast on the other side, and you're going to catch some fish. It's kind of interesting here that these disciples that spent these 3+ years with the Lord, they didn't recognize his voice. When we backslide, when we fall into sin, the Lord's speaking to us, but way too often we don't recognize his voice. Well, they did. They cast their nets on the other side, and something wonderful happened. In verse number 7, therefore that disciple, I'll keep reading. They cast therefore now in verse 6, and they were not able to draw it for the multitude of fishes. Therefore that disciple whom Jesus loved, that's John, saith unto Peter, It is the Lord. So they recognized, this is the Lord. Now how did they recognize that? Well, you kind of have to go back to whenever the Lord first reached out to these men. You remember the story there in Luke. They were fishing in Luke chapter number 5. And as they're fishing, let me read this to you real quick. In Luke chapter number 5, I don't know if you remember the story, Simon went out and he let down his nets, and they didn't catch anything. And the Lord asked him and told them, and said, let down your nets. Simon said, Master, we have toiled all night, and we have toiled all the night, and have taken nothing. Nevertheless, at thy word, I will let down the net. And when they had this done, they enclosed a great multitude of fishes, and their net brake. And they beckoned unto their partners, which were in the other ships, that they should come and help them. And they came and filled both the ships, so that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw that, he fell down at Jesus' feet, saying, Depart from me, I am a sinful man, O Lord. And then in verse number, there's James and John were there. And then in verse number 11 says, And when they had brought their ships to land, they forsook all and followed him. And the Lord said, From this point, you'll be fishers of men. The same thing happens. This time, though, they're backslidden. They've fallen into sin, especially Peter. And they cast out their nets. And this time, again, they have so many fish, they can't even bring them up. And they immediately know this is the Lord. And immediately they also know that they're wrong. They had fallen. It says there, when after John said, "This is the Lord," and Simon Peter heard this, that it was the Lord, he girt his fisher's coat unto him, for he was naked, and then cast himself into the sea. Peter had really sunk pretty low. He had lost his convictions, his standards, his walk with God, his voice, his ear to the Lord. And now when he recognizes the Lord, he knows he's wrong, and he throws his coat on, and he jumps into the sea and starts running to his Lord. What does the Lord want to do with Peter? Peter, no doubt, his mind is racing because he remembered 3 years ago when the Lord called him. And he knew he'd done wrong. And he knew he'd fallen into sin. And it broke his heart. But could the Lord really restore him? What was the Lord doing there? Let's keep going tomorrow.